Peter Griffin isn't exactly what you would call Father of the Year. Heck, he's not even trying to be top 100. Unless there's a category for most likely to get arrested while trying. He's brash, impulsive, and seems to have a sixth sense for choosing the absolute worst possible decision at any given moment. But, and this is a big but, buried underneath all the beer, bad ideas, and baffling schemes, Peter has his moments. Moments where he's so determined to be the best dad ever, you almost forget how much property damage he caused in the process. So grab a Pawtucket Patriot and brace yourself for the wildest, most over-the-top times Peter Griffin tried to prove he's the dad his kids will never forget. Or forgive. Let's kick things off with the time Peter Griffin almost killed Meg in the episode Peter's Daughter. Yeah, starting with near manslaughter might seem like a weird choice, but hey, this is Family Guy. If chaos isn't in the mix, you're probably watching the wrong show. So the episode begins with Quahog facing a flash flood of biblical proportions, the kind where you half expect Noah's Ark to float by with two giraffes sticking out on top. Naturally, griffins are indoor when the water starts creeping in. And while most people might panic, Peter, well, he reacts like Peter.
Oh my God!
I know, about the water, right? Wow, cool!
Seriously, at this point, you'd think Americans would have figured out how to build better houses, given their annual natural disasters season. Anyway, with water rising faster than Peter's cholesterol levels, it's time to evacuate. But because Peter is, well, Peter, he chooses this exact moment for his Irish instincts to kick in.
Hang on, Lois, there's a case of beer in the fridge. I can't leave that behind. Meg, you're a good swimmer. Go get it.
And because Meg's the kind of daughter who still tries to impress her dad, she actually does it. Swims across the kitchen like a soggy Michael Phelps to fetch a six-pack. But of course, Murphy's Law gets involved because why wouldn't it? Everything from there is pretty routine. Peter goes in to check up on her and finds her passed out underwater. Meg gets rushed to the hospital, and for the first time in forever, Peter realizes that his actions have consequences.
Oh my God, Peter. What if she doesn't come out of it?
I know, Lois. I never realized until now how much I've taken her for granted.
You think? With Meg hanging on by a thread, Peter makes a dramatic vow to treat her like the princess she deserves to be. And by some miracle, probably because the universe has a soft spot for our chubby Irishman, Meg pulls through.
Oh my God, Meg, you're okay! Oh, Meg, my beautiful daughter! Oh, things are gonna be different. No more will I treat you like some kind of alien.
Now, surprisingly enough, Peter actually kept his promise. He began pulling out her chair for her at the dinner table, taking her to movies, and even standing up for her in front of her bully.
Hey, Connie. Hi, Peter Griffin, Meg's father. Say, can you do me a favor? You see that fire extinguisher there?
Note to self, never piss off a dad built like a wrecking ball. But of course, this is Peter Griffin we're talking about. He doesn't do subtle. By the time Meg gets a boyfriend, yeah, I know, it's shocking. I'm just as shocked. Peter's overprotective side goes from sweet dad to, lunatic with boundary issues real fast.
Stay away from my daughter, you possible rapist!
Dad, stop it! Michael's my date!
Meg, I almost lost you once. I'm not gonna lose you again.
After a lot of begging on Meg's part, Lois's support, and an awkward interrogation session with Michael, Peter reluctantly agrees to let Meg go on her date, but not without a backup plan.
What do you think you're doing?
Peter? Oh, Peter.
I didn't say Peter. I said Dad.
Oh.
I hate myself for laughing at that. Predictably, Michael has had enough of Peter's antics and dips, leaving Meg heartbroken. So basically, Peter put her in a coma, nearly killed her schoolmate, and also chased her away from her only boyfriend in like forever. Honestly, that must be a personal best for him. Now, you'd think that'd be enough chaos for one episode, but nope. Meg drops another bombshell.
I'm pregnant!
Yep, turns out Michael's not just a boyfriend, he's a sharpshooter. Except, wait a second, isn't Meg like 16? I'm pretty sure Michael being a doctor means he... Yeah, let's not think about that. Let's not open up that can of worms. With Meg pregnant, Peter is left with the only logical choice. Storm over to Michael's house armed with, you guessed it, a loaded shotgun.
You got my Meg pregnant!
What? Oh my God, Meg, why didn't you tell me?
And so Michael proposes to Meg, and just like that, She's now a wife-to-be. For a hot second, it looks like things might settle down. But come on, we know better. Before the wedding bells could even ring and Michael could rethink his life choices, Meg decides to drop a bombshell right in the middle of the festivities.
I can't get married.
What? Well, why not?
Because I'm not pregnant.
Yep. Apparently she read her pregnancy wrong because, you know, that's what glasses folks do. Lois convinces Meg to go through with the day and just be honest with Michael. You know, the whole, if he cares about you, he'll understand speech, because that's ever worked, am I right? And so Peter still has the honor of walking his daughter down the aisle, which of course turns out to be all for naught when Meg delivers the news.
I'm not pregnant.
What?
Honestly, that relationship lasted way longer than I expected. In the end, Peter does try to salvage the situation, stepping in to comfort Meg with some rare, heartfelt dad energy. After that, they all return to their normal family life in Quahog, because why not? Thus wrapping up the story with a neat little bow. Speaking of bows, our next episode, Let's Go to the Hop, takes into the crazy world of school dances, starring once again, Peter and Meg. The episode kicks off in the most Family Guy way possible, a full-blown drug smuggling operation in the middle of a thunderstorm, because why not? Oh yeah, yep, peak cartoon logic right there. Unsurprisingly, the storm is a bit much for the plane to handle. One lightning strike to the wing later, and the plane comes crashing down into Quahog, thus spilling the merchandise into town. That being none other than psychedelic toads. Long story, but just take it like that. One thing leads to another, and before everyone knows it, Adam West High now has a toad-licking problem.
In local news, a new drug craze may have Quahog students licked. It's called Toad.
Now I won't bother going into details about how the drug is used, for obvious reasons. So we're just going to skip to the part where Peter and Lois discover Meg's toad problem.
How could you bring it into this house?
It's not mine. I was just holding it for a friend.
Now, where have I heard that excuse before? Yeah, it just had to be Florida. Unsurprisingly, Meg wasn't lying about the whole thing because, well, it's Meg.
Thought if I held Connie D'Amico's toad, she'd make one of the cool guys ask me to the winter snowball.
You're holding drugs so someone will invite you to a dance?
I mean, when you put it like that, it does make it sound worse than it already is. So it's pretty clear at this point that Meg isn't someone with sound judgment. So what does Peter do? Well, pretty much what any loving father with unresolved high school issues would do. He goes undercover in Meg's school to get rid of the toad problem.
Dad?
The reason I'm not responding is because I'm not this dad person. I'm the new kid in town, Lando Griffin.
Honestly, I think he's pulling it off. Meg, as you'd expect, is already having a full panic breakdown because apparently her social rep can't sink any lower than it already is. Peter, or should I say Lando, on the other hand, isn't fazed by this new setting one bit.
So tell me, homeboy, how about the baggy clothes we kids are wearing these days? Aren't they fat and stupid and poppin' fresh?
Now, unlike Meg, who has the personality of a wet cardboard box, Peter is pretty much a bundle of charisma and mayhem, of course. Both of which is pretty much a recipe for high school fame. And so it doesn't take long for him to catch the attention of a certain someone.
Oh, God! Ow!
Cool, he's bleeding. Just like in the movies.
That's right, Connie D'Amico. Suddenly, Peter is no longer just funny new kid. He's the hottest thing at Adam West High. A status that, let's just say, granted him the perfect opportunity to fulfill his mission.
We're gonna do some toad. You in?
You're gonna do Toad?
What's the big deal?
Let me tell you about it, stud. You'll get chill.
Say what you want about Family Guy, but their musicals? Chef's kiss. By the time Peter finishes his rendition, it's safe to say that doing Toad has gone out of vogue.
Gotta give it up. Give it up.
Give up the toad now.
Give it up.
I mean, if that doesn't cure your addiction, then nothing will. Now with Peter, Lando, at the height of his high school fame, Meg seizes her chance for a reputation upgrade. And no, Lando doesn't become her lost-long sibling or distant cousin. He becomes her date to the school dance.
How come I'm going to the winter snowball with Lando?
Meg, you got a date? Oh, wait till I tell your mother. who I'm looking forward to meeting.
Probably the only time taking your dad to the school dance turns out to be a good thing. Back home, Meg, for the first time in her life, has a reason to brag about school at the dinner table.
Who needs drugs when you can go to the dance with the coolest guy in school? Going with Dad is gonna skyrocket me up the popularity food chain.
With Lando no doubt being the topic of discussion. But before she could even finish her victory lap, she gets an unexpected call.
It's probably Connie calling for me. Hello? Oh. Yeah, hold on. It's for Lando.
Pretty much the start of her social downfall, because as it turns out, Connie has some plans for Lando herself. By the time Meg returns to the school once again to bask in her newfound popularity, she discovers that her date to the school dance has found himself a different partner.
Hey, I thought you were taking me to the dance.
Something suddenly came up.
I mean, did we really expect Peter to stick to the plan? That's like expecting Quagmire to hold back his giggity. Bloody hell, I can't believe I just said that. Ugh, disgusting. The episode from this point is basically every high school drama movie ever. Peter, against the wishes of Meg and Lois, takes Connie to the dance. He wins king and queen of the dance with her. Only for this to happen, just as he's about to be crowned.
Hold it. I can't be your king.
We then get the whole generic speech about how Meg is supposed to be the one, blah blah blah, before telling everyone he'll be riding off into the sunset, or in this case, recklessly into the night, and up Dead Man's Curve, thus putting an end to the story of Lando Griffin, while also giving Meg a much needed popularity boost. So, you could say overall, Peter did do pretty well by Meg here, albeit a few hiccups along the way. Yet Meg isn't the only child that Peter has tried to win Father of the Year from. As we can see in our next episode, the sun also draws. The episode opens with Chris, surprisingly, in a moment of rare calmness, sitting under a tree, deep in his drawing zone. Naturally, because it's Family Guy and tranquility is illegal in Quahog apparently, this peaceful moment is quickly shattered by none other than a nerdy scout leader having a classic scout leader freakout.
What in the name of our Christian God? You're out of the semicircle. All scouts have to sit in the semicircle. Why?
And that right there, folks, is the million-dollar question. Why? Why anything? Why does this scout leader care so much about geometric seating arrangements? But of course, it wouldn't be Family Guy if we didn't throw in a ridiculous amount of drama before we get to the answer, because, you know, comedy. Anyway, moving on. Peter decides it's bonding time with Chris, which in Peter's world means commandeering his son's hobbies and living out his own scout-related fantasies.
Chris, this is the speed machine that's gonna win you the Soapbox Derby.
But Dad, I was supposed to build it myself. It's a rule.
You don't help your kids, you get called a deadbeat. You help them out, they quote the rules. Jeez, you can't win with that lot. Peter continues to fantasize about the race, so much so he doesn't notice Chris's lack of enthusiasm. When Chris finally speaks up about his reluctance to participate in the Scouts, Peter's response is pure Peter.
Dad, what would you say if I told you I didn't want to be in the Scouts?
I'd say, come again? And then I'd laugh because I...
Reminds me of when I told my dad I wanted to be a YouTuber. Let's just say I haven't heard from him since. Anyway, fast forward to Derby Day, and Chris is already over it. Peter's excitement is in full swing, but Chris can't wait to be done with the whole thing, which he does rather spectacularly by jumping the gun and getting disqualified for an early start. Cue to the collective disappointment and the scout leader's rage, all of which leads to Chris getting kicked out of the Scouts.
Boy is out of the Scouts.
Jeez, who died and made you President Nixon?
It's been 2 years. Your idiot son hasn't earned a single merit badge. Now, if you...
Now any dad with an ounce of pride might have clocked this guy right there and then. But not Peter, no. Peter decides this is the perfect moment to swallow his pride for once and beg for one last chance for Chris. And after some truly un-Peter-like level-headed dialogue, he secures it, which as you'd expect, ends in disappointment. For Peter, of course.
Hey, there's my scout.
Well, not anymore, Dad. I'm out. They made me turn in my uniform and everything.
You'd think that would be the end of it, but Peter Griffin doesn't know the meaning of giving up, mostly because he doesn't know the meaning of most words. And so he decides to take up the matter with the Scout headquarters in New York, And you know what 3 hours of driving gets you? That's right, a little family road trip.
All right, you guys, we're off. Those scouts are never gonna know what hit them.
Or maybe they will. What follows is peak Peter Griffin chaos. He gets lost, ignores Lois's suggestion to ask for directions, and eventually has to make an emergency pit stop at a tourist attraction to unleash whatever horrors his stomach is holding.
Oh, an Indian casino.
Yeah, I gotta find me the stink lodge.
Meanwhile, Lois discovers the pocket-rotting joys of slot machines. Minutes turn to hours, or maybe just an hour. And before she even realizes it, she's gambled away their family car. Honestly, it's fair.
I sort of bet our car.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not gonna panic. I just need to go back into the casino and find a high roller who will pay $1 million to sleep with my wife.
Luckily for Lois, Peter tries to play it cool and civil for once and asks the casino management for the car back. What does that get him? A crash course in casino ownership policy. As it turns out, only Native Americans get to have a refund.
I'm an Indian too.
Excuse me?
You heard me. I'm a member of your tribe, and that entitles me to a share of your wampum, Kemosabe.
And I think we all know what happens next. Classic Peter. After making up some crazy story about a long-lost Indian ancestor, the casino management actually humors him. The catch? Peter has to pass their very simple test to prove he's got tribal blood.
Your husband must go out in the wilderness without food or water or shoes.
Okay, maybe it's not so simple. Naturally, Chris tags along because what's better than one clueless Griffin in the wild? Why, it's two clueless Griffins. And as expected, this train wreck is headed straight for Disaster City.
Must eat. Haven't snacked in hours. Can't feel my eyes.
Now, if you've ever fasted or have gone a long time without food, you could already tell that Peter's at the stage where everything starts to look like food. In his case, he's hallucinating conversations with wise clouds and philosophical oak trees. Chris, meanwhile, tries to have a heart-to-heart with his dad again. Basically, he says the same thing he's been screaming all week. I don't like the scouts, Dad. Except this time, Peter's hangry delusions finally unlock his responsible dad mode.
I probably don't say this often enough, but I'm really proud of you, Chris.
Thanks, Dad.
The episode rounds up with Peter and Chris escaping a forest fire because, well, it's Family Guy, and mishaps like this just sort of happen. They return to the casino and retrieve their car after a bit of haggling, thus allowing them to drive back home to the good old Quahog. While the whole episode could have been well avoided if Peter was anything but a stubborn egghead, he did manage to put a smile on Chris's face. Now, if there's one face that's practically impossible to split with a smile, it's definitely Stewie's. Yet, funny enough, there was one time when Peter managed to do that. In the courtship of Stewie's father, we see Peter attempt the possible by bonding with Stewie. The story kicks off when Lois realizes something isn't quite right with Stewie's school artwork. And by not right, I mean a series of chillingly detailed sketches of him offing her in increasingly creative ways.
Notice anything unusual?
I sure do. His father's not in any of them.
Exactly.
Yeah, yep. That's definitely the problem here. Naturally, Lois decides it's time for Peter to step up and bond with his son. Seems reasonable, right? Except this is Peter Griffin we're talking about. So reasonable just flew out the window faster than Meg's hopes for screen time. First up, the classic take your kid to the ball game moment. Heartwarming, wholesome, unforgettable, until you realize Peter left Stewie panting in the car.
Where is Stewie?
Next, Peter tries bringing Stewie to the drunken clam, because what toddler doesn't love soaking up life lessons from Quagmire?
Quagmire, let me cover Stewie's ears.
He just said giggity, didn't he? And finally, Peter caps off the father-son tour with a trip to a strip club.
Peter, did you take Stewie to a strip club? He smells like sweat and fear.
Because why not? I mean, that's one thing to get mad at. By now, it's painfully obvious that Peter doesn't exactly have a PhD in child psychology, or, you know, common sense. But just as Lois is about to give him a crash course in parenting, the strangest thing happens. While Peter clumsily reaches for a bowl of rice, it spills all over Lois's head and, miraculously, Stewie laughs.
Ow!
Oh, sorry, Lois.
Oh, that rice got you, bitch.
Hey, Stewie's laughing.
Hey, congratulations, Peter. you've discovered the secret to Stewie's happiness, tormenting Lois. What follows is a beautifully chaotic montage of father-son bonding. They hose Lois down with a garden hose, shove her into the trunk of their car, and because subtlety is overrated, roll the car into a lake. I think it's pretty obvious who Stewie got his character from. For the first time ever, Stewie isn't plotting world domination or Lois's ultimate demise. He's just happy. But like all good things, their mischief marathon screeches to a halt when Lois storms back home, looking like she just crawled out of a horror movie.
Be you back. What's for dinner?
Peter, when I said bond with Stewie, this is not what I had in mind. I am furious.
Hey, yeah, pro tip, Lois. Next time, maybe spell out what you do mean. And then, in a twist rarer than the functional relationship on The Bachelor, Stewie actually defends Peter.
Like that? Take that!
Stewie, you go into your room.
I think not.
Which of course prompts Stewie to ask Peter for backup. But what does Peter do? He folds like a poker player on a beach chair. Feeling betrayed by Peter's lack of backup, Stewie promptly burns all of his mini dad outfits and pictures, reverting their relationship back to square one. Which, for those keeping score, is somewhere between non-existent and awkward strangers at the DMV. But Peter isn't giving up. After a string of failed apologies, he goes for the dad equivalent of a nuclear option: Disney World. Because when all else fails, buy your kids love with some overpriced theme park tickets. And of course, it wouldn't be a Peter Griffin plan without a major screw-up. And so Stewie gets lost because of course he does.
Hey, Stewie, they got... Stewie? Oh my God, he's gone! Has anyone seen my son? Hello?
The rest of the episode from this point is pretty much classic Family Guy. Stewie gets press-ganged into child labor as a singer on one of Disney's creepy animatronic rides. I want to say it's a small world, but it's a different song. Because let's be real, it's Disney. Peter ends up saving Stewie, with a few bodies left along the way, thus wrapping up their father-son time with an oddly sweet moment.
You really came through for me today, so I... Oh, what the hell?
I love you too, buddy.
And there you have it. Peter Griffin, part lovable idiot, part disaster magnet, and 100% of the dad who somehow makes it work. Sure, he's a walking liability, but at least he's a present liability. And hey, in the Griffin family, that actually counts for something.